Welcome to Season 2 of the Play Their Way podcast, where we talk about all things in child-first coaching. I'm your host, Laura Jane Jones, and today's guest is former rugby player and international rugby coach, Russell Rusty Earnshaw. Rusty, it's great to have you on to chat all things good and bad coaching. I'm so interested in why you're so passionate about this topic, though, generalising slightly, but athletes who make it to the top of their game normally don't have such an appreciation of those who get left behind, I guess, in bad coaching environments. So what sparked it all for you?
Oh, hey, LJ, thanks for having me on. And it's probably what sparked it? Good question. I've had some good coaching experiences and I've had some very bad ones. So I guess those feelings, you hold them and probably influence how you coach. And then the other thing is I had 2 children, and that's completely changed my world, really, if I'm honest, as well as my coaching. So I'm not saying that all coaches need to have children, but I think I would recommend it. Those are probably 2 of the kind of biggest influences for me, really. I guess when you spoke about the former player, I was thinking earlier about almost like it's blue tick syndrome, isn't it? Like the ones that survived are very happy to say, well, this is how it happened for me, and forget about, the pile of bodies that were left along the way of the kids that dropped out of sports and or had really poor experiences or are only bringing those experiences to light years on. I guess obviously we're filming this just after the Olympics. And I was like really interested in the sports that have done really well. Probably the sports that have been really vocal around. We've had some previous stuff go wrong in our sport, and we've actually changed our coaching approach, and we've put the athletes at the centre, and we've been way more mindful of mental health and looking after them. And I think they've done pretty well on the medal table. My bias, I guess, is that you create really good environments for people, young people. I guess we're going to talk about today. And that is the most important thing. And then they'll thrive and they'll do amazing things. I guess I've seen it lots, and I've seen it happen exactly the opposite way. So I guess those are the things that kind of my mind goes to with that.
It's interesting. You talk about when you've been a professional rugby player, you think about the ones who aren't, the ones who get left behind. Is that something that all these years later, and I say that with great respect, I'm not painting you as an old man, but do you look back and think, I played with XYZ and he was really good and he should have played a lot later, or he should have played at a much higher level? Are they still things that stick in your memory now as people who haven't reached their potential? And how much do you blame bad coaching for those?
Yeah, I mean, my view is, and if you think about my coaching, if I did a session and one kid had a poor experience, I would really struggle with that, if I'm honest. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but I'm just saying that's how it is. Yeah, I know loads of players that, like people that were really good players and dropped out. I also not have played with lots of players. So I did a thing for parents the other day up at Semper. We were in a room with 100 parents, and there was a player that played with me at Bath. And I actually was really intrigued because we didn't speak about it back then with lots of the kind of more senior players. And his lad was on the course. And I said, what was your experiences of being a player? Because on my presentation, like intro slide, I always go, look, we're a product of our biographies. I had some pretty poor experiences. I'm probably rebelling against professional sports. And I said, what were your experiences? And they weren't that good, quite frankly. And I was like, again, there's a guy that's won multiple championships, played Premiership rugby, and just described it as I felt anxious all the time. I didn't feel like I could be myself. And he's probably the same as me, probably like enjoyed the off pitch more than the on pitch. And there was a moment when I was starting to think, were we kind of self-medicating at this point? Because there was just so much. And then I guess if we fast forward to the hundreds of years since I played, just thinking about the world now and social media and judgment and the inability to escape any mistake you've ever made, I think it's such a tough place to be. And that isn't, we're not even just talking about the top level, are we? Like, we see how stuff can go viral on social media, like instantly. The Australian breakdancer has like taken over the world.
Reagan.
At this moment in time. Yeah.
You talked there about...
Yeah, look.
You've talked there about your negative experiences, but initially you said that one of your kind of great driving forces is having children. Is it actually probably more in two parts then? You're inspired by having kids and having your own kids, but actually righting the wrongs of the experiences that you had growing up.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both really, and both my kids are very different. Elsa does a bit more individual sport stuff. She's not a massive fan of team sports. I've observed her trying to engage in team sports, and she finds it quite challenging. Fred loves his rugby, loves his team sport stuff. So actually, just watching the two of them has also helped me loads. Just because, guess my ultimate session is everyone's an individual. So we can definitely talk about the challenges of being a coach of young people. And I think how you individualize sessions is like one of the hardest things to do. Me observing my own two kids in their own way go through, their journeys through sport, through injuries, through non-selection, through not wanting to play in the A's because the A team aren't that kind to everyone else. And the adults are very happy to allow that to happen. Has just, probably firmed it up even more that you've got to go meet kids where they are, create great environments. I'm sure we'll talk about there's some really unhelpful phrases in my view, things like the game is the teacher. I think you need coaches to help people get better. If we put kids in front of a maths book, they wouldn't suddenly be able to do differential equations, would they? So don't ever underestimate the role of the coach in helping young people get better. I guess the skill of the coach is the bit where it's really hard to coach young people. I take my hat off, probably clap regularly to anyone that is a volunteer coach. It is mind-blowing, how challenging that is to go and coach, 40 kids, probably one of which is your own, which possibly makes it even harder to have these people observing you, coach. So, Sunday morning rugby coach is an example. You'll have the parents watching. Some of them might have played rugby and think they know better than you. They're observing you. It gets to a match day and everyone starts talking about the big game, and suddenly your Sundays become your most stressful day of the week. So I take my hat off to anyone that's out there doing it, I guess. My life now is really trying to upskill those people to be able to help kids help themselves. And yeah, I don't think we'll ever finish this. I know we chatted beforehand about, we've got this movement, but the challenge is that, it's new parents every time, new coaches, and so they're learning each time. I actually think that the single, possibly most effective way of doing this is to engage every young person in coach development and understanding coaching, and then hopefully they'll eventually become better coaches than I had.
What do you think is more influential, good coaching or bad coaching?
Wow. I think, for me, good coaching can be absolutely inspirational, can change people's lives. Simply, I'm sure anyone that's listening can imagine that person that had that impact on your life, and that may well have been on the pitch. For me, I was lucky. I had a guy, Jeff Hurst, not the Jeff Hurst, a nightclub bouncer from the Mall in Stockton, who was our junior coach, and he was awesome. I didn't have that much good stuff around that, to be honest. But then we know that, we can break people with bad coaching. And again, you think about, how disruptive do I want to be now? We are allowing people to, again, someone will, I'll speak to a couple of, I'm over in Canada at the moment, and I was saying, I was just asking a few of the coaches about, and some of the players about their coaches, and he shouts and screams at me, in my face, but, he gets the job done. I'm like, what do you mean by he gets the job done? How is that a thing that, because you don't know the young person's experience that you're coaching. So shouting at them may trigger something. You don't know that. Having a really good, if as a player you could share one thing with me that would help me coach you better, is a question I ask regularly, and I get some remarkable answers that definitely helped me. And again, if I also ask the same question with coaches I work with. So John Mitchell, who coached England, men, and now is coaching the women and doing a great job. And it's probably one of the most changed coaches I've ever worked with, because I knew him as a player and I didn't really enjoy playing against him. He said, I've lost my last 3 jobs and I'm ready to change. And a few years ago, I was stabbed and left for dead in my house. I'm living every day like it's my last. So if you don't know that about someone, like, how can you get the best out of them? So I guess I'm kind of trying to, whilst being over here, I'm trying to very quickly understand people and their stories and then work out how I can get the best out of them.
It's interesting you bring up someone like John Mitchell, because my next question was going to be about a kind of carrot-based stick approach in coaching. And he's certainly a great example for those who are listening who don't know. He's a former men's international rugby coach. He's now coaching England women. And it's very easy and obvious to see that he's a changed man because he's been making TikToks with the girls. I never thought I'd see the day that kind of thing came around. Yeah, there's a cracking one to watch on Jess Breach's social media. But he is somebody who would be famed. I've got lots of friends who've been coached, male friends who've been coached by John in the past, and he is that stick approach. And when I speak to the girls now, it's very much a carrot approach. Do you think we've moved completely away from that coaching ethos, and we now are listening more, or do you think there is always going to be a place for a carrot-based stick, and certainly is there a place for the latter, the stick element?
Yeah, it's obviously, as a coach, one of the questions you ask is, can people see your language? So obviously, I really want to go, what do you mean by stick? But let's just bear with me. And it was interesting. I've got a friend who he works in Premiership Rugby, and he works with young people. And in his interview, they asked him, how good are you using the stick? Like, what a weird question to ask someone who's about to coach kids. I actually don't know what the stick is, by the way. But I think what we need as coaches is the ability to have options. So if someone turns up late for training, you need to have the ability to give them a hug and go, you okay? Has anything gone wrong? I've been in a rugby club where that happened to a senior player, turned up, running around the corner late and just sent away. And turned out he was in a car crash. No one asked the question. But you've also got to have the ability to, probably in a kind way, just check in with people around their standards, or some stuff that you agreed. My sense is that, coaches just need to be skillful. It's decision making, isn't it? I think clear is kind. I actually think it's really unkind to not have important conversations with people, with coaches or with players. So, again, a coach just asked me that today. He said, Rusty, would you be comfortable, like, telling that player around this stuff? And I said, of course I would. Like, this player here today, 6 years he's been coached and no one's told him that he needs to get better at this. And he's here with me for 4 days. And if he leaves here and he's none the wiser, like, I'm not helping him get better. And one of the key things to keep people in sports is their competence. So actually it's like really important around confidence, isn't it, to be getting better at stuff. So if stick means being super clear with people around either expectations that we've agreed or actually how we're going to get better, then I guess I would use the stick in inverted commas. Again, I'm not quite sure what the carrot is either, but I assume it's a bit more orange than the stick. Do I want to catch people doing good stuff? 100%. I've probably got a way more of a bias around peer-to-peer stuff than coach-to-player stuff. So I think about interactions between coach and player as me to you, you to me, them to them. And I just put a much higher value on you to me because the door is open. So as a coach, very easy to go, today's session is going to be about this. If you have any stuff that you're struggling with, please come and find me. Or please go and find LJ. She's going to be like the individual coach for today. And also put a huge value on peer-to-peer. Like, just go and put your hand on the shoulder of someone who's been a great teammate today. Point to someone who's doing something that's like really surprised you. Point to someone who's doing something that they got a skill you want to steal. Would I do that with grown-ups? I would do that with grown-ups as well. And we did a fair bit of that with Hurricanes in Super Rugby around point to the person who's causing you the most problems in defence. Cool, go and get a top tip off them to help you get better. So if those are what the carrot and stick are, I'm definitely using the carrot and stick. But again, I'm not sure what people mean by that. And I guess my experience is some people are treating kids in a way that I don't think is appropriate.
You talk about peer-to-peer there, and I think it's a really interesting one when we're talking about giving children a voice and self-advocacy, because children aren't always particularly comfortable telling us as adults what they like, what they don't like, what their problems are. How important is it to make sure that the conversation's still happening in a coach environment, even if it's not happening with you, but you can still be an audience to it? How much are you listening to the conversations that kids are having between each other in that coaching environment, where they're expressing what they're liking and what they're disliking?
Yeah, and I guess the way I think about coaching is you notice. So your noticing skills are your most important skills. So you should be able to tell what their favourite game is. You probably don't need to ask them. Probably be able to go, oh, yeah, they're coming alive now. Or actually, when I played this game, they look really bored. So I guess noticing most important thing, then decision making, like what options am I going to use? And then, yeah, just their interaction with it. So I guess for me as coaches, I'm definitely asking the questions, but even the how of asking a question, maybe just, as you walk off the pitch, being alongside someone, not face to face, maybe giving them a specific question. Like, what was your one favorite bit from this session? The one thing that would make it better. But also, yeah, as you said, it was interesting. Just today, I had a couple of players that I was like, are really good at something. So I kind of tasked them with secretly helping some other players get good at this thing as well. And they just did a brilliant job. And then I was just listening in at the end of training, just to the players that they'd almost coached and the players, like having conversations. And it definitely gave me some cool ideas for today. So I don't think and some coaches might do this more formally. They might go, I'm going to send out Google Docs. I'm going to get some feedback. My preference is that I'm kind of doing it all the time. I'm either noticing how they're interacting with something, or as you said, like I'm listening into any kind of conversations they're having and going, oh, that's interesting. I generally will involve them in the session anyway. So what's the next level of this game is a question I ask lots. So if one team's on top, I might go, cool, blue team, like, just tell the headband team, like, what would take them to the next level of this game? How can we make it harder for them? And then similarly, I do that on an individual level. But I can only do it on an individual level because I just use whiteboards loads. So I'd get players to put on their mild, medium, or spicy challenge on a whiteboard. And if they're currently on mild, so we did it recently with a Premiership Football Academy, imagine that. And everyone turned up on the whiteboard, they put their name, and then they put like mild, medium, or spicy. We gave them some options that might have scaffolded it for them, but they choose what level they started at. And then it was their choice around how much they challenge themselves. My experience, again, is that people will challenge themselves way more when they're in charge of the challenge, rather than Rusty's telling them what to do. So, yeah, I guess for me, it's happening all the time. The other reason I do that is because it just creates more options for me. So I might have an idea of the next level of this game, and I probably have. So if I'm planning a session, I'm probably going, okay, like, if they're doing well at this, how are we going to progress it? Or if they're struggling, which we've had today, how are we going to regress this? And then, but I'll ask the players first in case I can steal any cool ideas. And I just keep adding them into my memory bank.
You talked previously about how can we teach kids to be coaches from the beginning? How can we empower them as coaches whilst they're still young athletes? Is that the kind of thing that you're talking about with like your mild, medium and spicy game? Because if the game isn't the coach, I get that. But in that environment, are you giving them the tools to almost coach themselves, to find those improvement markers, to find those things that are going to help them, upskill them, change what they're doing?
Yeah, and I think so. My definition of coaching is helping people help themselves, um, which is different to helping people. Um, so, and again, think about this again. If you are a junior coach, like if you're coaching with other coaches, so you might notice that you're trying to coach in a more orange carrot way, and other people are less like you, and that might be a simple thing as they think coaching is a different thing to you. So I think if I was in a coaching team, like probably sitting down and going, what do we think coaching is? How do you plan? What are the 2 or 3 most important things you would put in, you'd think about when planning? Okay, if we were running a session, which 4 or 5 kids do you think you would interact with the most and why? So kind of just understanding how we're both 2, 3, 4 of us thinking about coaching would be something that's, I guess, important to me. Yeah, and then through the session, I guess, I'm always, it might be that there's a whiteboard on the side and, the players are putting feedback on the whiteboard to make the session better. It might be that we've got a couple of the players who are having more success at the moment, acting as coaches for the players. As I said before, like as a secret mission, because me saying, oh, LJ, could you help Rusty? He's not that good. In front of Rusty is probably not that helpful. So probably involving players a bit in the planning process. Oh, cool. So we're thinking about playing this game, like, or this one. Which one do you think? Which one do you think the players will like the most? Probably explaining a little bit around rationale, and this on 2 levels really for me. So, in a session, I might do a freeze as an example. In invasion sports, instead of huddles, I'm way more likely to do a freeze. Cool, freeze, no one move, because then we can all see the same picture. We might be able to manipulate some people and maybe replay it. And so me kind of freezing it and then asking them questions is one level, but the other level might be to actually say to the players, what do you think the benefit of a freeze is? And do you think it would be helpful if you were able to freeze yourselves? So again, we were at Sember last week and we did that with 3 players. So probably the players that having them who were the better players playing in rugby in fly half position. So probably have a really good view of the game and probably understand it relatively well. And they played games where they were able to freeze it twice each in a game, and they were then able to manipulate some players and help some other players be better off the ball. So, yeah, I think about it like, ideally, I would love the players that I've coached to be amazing coaches. And I'm lucky enough to see that exists, both professionally and, I guess, people who are coaching young people. I always think about Wayne Smith, who's probably the best rugby coach there's ever been, quite frankly. I don't think many people would argue with me on that. And I just think about like his coaching tree. So like the players that he's coached and how many great coaches have come out of that. So I guess that's something that drives me as well.
When you talked about peer-to-peer coaching and giving young people the tools in an environment, I love that fly half example and the freeze. And there'll be people who don't follow rugby, don't necessarily get it. But how much do you think that's breeding, I don't want to say gentler coaches, but perhaps coaches with a bit more empathy for those around them as they get older?
I think it's pretty hard to coach if you're not like kind and empathetic, would be my view. Fletch, who I've obviously worked a lot with, some people some people say to me, I've been told I'm a bit too kind. And Fletch always says, how can you be too kind? How's that a thing? So yeah, for me, like kindness, empathy would be super important skills of really good coaches. The ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes and walk alongside them is clearly helpful because in my kind of, I guess one of my principles is everyone's at a different bus stop. Like you turn up at a session and there might be 30 kids there, but some of them have had a terrible night the night before. Some of them are going through some, their parents are going through something. Some of them have just had a growth spurt and they're not quite sure where their hands and feet are and they're possibly more prone to injury. Some of them have had an argument with some other ones. Some of them went out and had a couple of beers last night and probably a little bit too young to be having beers and have turned up for training. So there's all kinds of stuff just going on even away from the pitch. And then on the pitch, there's different skill levels, there's different motivations, there's all of this kind of puzzle in front of you as a coach that you have to kind of work out the solutions to. So I think like not having empathy would make it pretty difficult to do that. The way I think about this is like, if you're a maths teacher and, everyone in the class doesn't need to do their 2 times table. Some people can already do that. So how you're able to check in with people, understand where they currently are, help them move to the next level, help themselves move to the next level, are really vital skills. So I guess if that's more gentler coaching, and again, I'm not a massive fan of the word, like, as that kind of word, I would think like kindness is really important. I think clear is kind. I think helping someone understand exactly where they are and what they need to do to move to the next level of their game is super important. And if that's general, then that's general. Even just us having this conversation makes you realise how important language is. And in coaching teams, probably the other thing, and in clubs and in schools, I think agreeing some stuff early on is very important. It's fascinating. I'm over here in Canada, and what have I noticed in 24 hours? And we were just talking, I was at Gareth Rees, who's one of the most, as you know as well, he's the most famous Canadian rugby player ever, and he played fly half. And in their competition over here, I said, how many players are Canadian and are playing 9 or 10 in your competition? And it's like a handful. And I'm like, I'm not surprised. So over here, they should have like a playmakers program. They should have some games and some stuff and maybe some camps to help develop playmakers. And at the moment, they don't. And I just think that not having a clarity on where we're going, what's important to us, what environment do we want to set up, what skills do we want to develop, is making it like really, it's probably going to mean they're going to lose lots of games, but it also it's just not that kind of the players involved in it.
And the flip side of that is that in their women's game, their star is their outside half who's overplaying in England and one of the stars of our league over here. So it's an interesting one. I
actually think, sorry, just to talk about again, how many of the Canadian men are playing overseas? But again, let's take this back to kids, like finding the appropriate experiences and expertise for the kids. And it might not be you as a coach. It might be actually it might also be that you've got a parent on the sideline who's a psychologist or a counsellor and actually can help them with some skills as well. But we have to look at the individuals. So some of the Canadian women are playing over in England and doing remarkable stuff and getting better, and that's the right experience for them to get better. Simple. We need to think about that for the kids. What experience does this player need? And that might be at the cost of winning a game. It might be that this player is, if let's talk about another sport, let's talk about football. And if someone's played in goal all their life, then, eventually when you can only pick one goalie and they're the second choice goalie, they may drop out of football. So why we haven't given that player more outfield experiences at a younger age is vital.
So not getting children to be too focused on one thing in a sports environment, making sure that they're getting a variety of lots of different opportunities.
Yeah, we, again, in rugby in 2015, we spoke to the 45 then best players in the world around their development experiences, and they'd all played at least 3 different positions, and they'd all played in multiple environments. So I'm not saying go and loan your kids out to the team next door, but what I am saying is think about the experiences that player needs. If you're coaching in a team sport, okay, they're currently playing centre midfield. What are the 2 other positions that they could play this season that would help them be a better player? What's the one thing we could do as a team that would help this player be better? That might be as simple as we're going to go on tour. I think touring is so important. It's such a vital experience for young people because A, they get to connect, B, they learn some new skills, C, they probably meet some new friends from another part of the world, and they'll talk about it for forever and ever. So yeah, just being really kind of intentional around the experiences we're putting together for the players.
One thing I have to ask you about today is I've seen some of the great videos that you've made in the past, and the one about the top 10 things coaches shouldn't do is a favourite of mine. What inspired you to start creating content around this kind of stuff?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not good at creating content, but my daughter is very. She was like, "Oh my God, Dad, our video is on my Instagram feed." Like I was like, "Oh, is that what you know?" Well, some people like said something about it. She said, "Oh no, they said it's really good, but it's on my Instagram feed." And so I was like, "Okay, I'm taking." She's like, "I'm taking it down." I was like, "Okay, I'm cool with that." I recognise that Dad is 49 and just not cool. Yeah, I guess I think I just want to make people think. So we just did the one with UK coaching around like, what if we thought about the classroom the same way we did about the pitch, and we were shouting at the teacher, we were shouting at the kids, and you need to do, it's 8 times 4 is 32, and those types of things. I guess I want to get people to think about something. And I think the classroom analogies are really helpful. I sometimes turn up at sessions and, there might be 25 kids and one ball, and you wouldn't have one pencil in the classroom, and people would be like passing it around, wouldn't you? So, yeah, I guess it was just kind of to raise people's awareness. I think the next bit is, and everything starts with awareness, is to create content around the skills that you need to develop to do this stuff. Because, as we said earlier, coaching is really, really hard. It's like super dynamic. It can be really unpredictable. The same kid turns up tomorrow and they're almost different to the kid that was there yesterday. And so our ability to be skillful, adaptable coaches is going to be the deciding factor in whether, kids are inspired and have amazing experiences and stay involved in sport or not. And I get stressed out by the or not bit when kids, tell me, "Oh yeah, I did this," and it's interesting over here again. I was in America with my daughter in July, and I'm over here now, and rugby over here isn't kids' number one sport. So, they've probably been through 4 or 5 others, and it's not gone that well for them. And they've found their home in rugby, which is pretty cool. So I love just seeing the kids interacting with each other. And, we finish training and the coaches are exhausted and the players like, "Can we do a bit more touch?" And I'm just like, wow, I just love to see that they've kind of found their place. They belong. They love the sport that they're doing. I guess. Yeah, it's just like amazing noticing that stuff. And yeah, I think that's our job as coaches, is to find and outcreate spaces where people can belong.
What for you are the biggest things we can do as a collective to improve children's coaching going forward in the UK?
Look, I guess I go to a lot of places, and I generally, like, if I go and do a CPD somewhere, CPD is a strong word, but, I'll often ask, what's the one thing you're most proud of? What's the one thing that's your biggest problem? I think we need to help people with their biggest problems quickly, and maybe we'll talk about a couple of the common ones. And then I think we need to collaborate and share more. So the coaches that I'm with now are from different clubs and different spaces and different levels, and we'll stay connected potentially for the rest of our lives, because WhatsApp and the internet allows us to do that. So one of the first things I think we need to do is to create this kind of support network around coaches. When I first started coaching, before the internet and all that stuff, I remember having very lonely drives home, like stressing about everything. And to be fair, I ended up on a drip in hospital for three weeks, definitely for overworking myself. So I guess the first thing for me is to create like this real support network around coaches. Second thing for me are the problems that they encounter regularly, and then I guess helping them with options and solutions. And again, sometimes I think it is the club's responsibility. So parents is a really common one. How do you have parents that are like on side with you on the journey, have clarity on what's going on, not jumping over the railings, trying to attack a referee, or shouting at the coaches, or putting on comments on WhatsApp groups that the coaches are on. That again, I've heard happen a few times this year. That's pretty tough to take. Other things is, I think we could probably save people lots of times just looking up loads and loads of different drills. I think Fletcher's done some really good work with Scottish Rugby around their wee games and 4 or 5 games that coaches can kind of go, okay, this is a great game, and here's some different levels to this game. I think the ability, we just mentioned it to you beforehand, to coach in a game. So look, we are definitely, I am an advocate for games-based coaching. I think making it feel as close to the game as possible, giving you the decisions that you might make in a game, are way more likely to then transfer to the game. And also, if you develop those skills, then you're way more likely to stay involved in the game and enjoy it. So your ability to coach in games, and we just had a session with a group of coaches who are probably not that comfortable with it today. And I modeled some stuff this morning, and then we played you run the game for 3-4 minutes, and then you tag in another coach, and they tag in another coach. And we videoed them as well, and that wouldn't be common for them. We put the video on the WhatsApp group tonight, and tomorrow morning we're going to have a coffee, and we're going to chat about what people noticed from the video, what they were proud of and what they did, what's the one thing that they might do differently. So I think that's I guess, another common problem. The co-coaching becomes a really big one for me. So I'm coaching with a couple of other people, and they think differently to me. I don't believe you should be shouting at kids. By the way, I don't believe you should be shouting at kids, because we know that in fight or flight, the brain deprioritizes listening, and people actually just stop listening to you. So probably co-coaching comes up a lot. How do we get our coaches on the same page? No surprise, all that and the games-based coaching both exist in the professional world as well. So coaches that are doing amazing work with the kids, don't panic. Everyone's struggling with this stuff. Partly because if you go back, probably when I played a long time ago, we didn't really coach through games. When I was at Bath, we were looking to, we would probably get there early so we could play a bit of touch, because we knew we weren't going to play touch in the week. We were just going to do unopposed passing, or we'd either do level 1 of the game, we'd do unopposed passing, or we'd just do running, or we'd do level 11 and we'd have a fight with each other on a Thursday night, which was also very weird. So I guess, there's some of the things that I see, and I guess for NGBs and coach developers and clubs and schools, just kind of taking those barriers away and helping coaches with those problems, because we've all got the problem that we're stuck on. We've all got that one thing that if we just got around that barrier, we would be able to probably be a bit happier and also be a slightly better coach.
That's a kind of collective look at things. What about as individuals? If you're a grassroots coach who's listening to this, you are having conversations with coaches all the time about what their issues are and what their problems are, but you're also observing what those problems are and can probably identify them for people a bit easier. What are the biggest changes that individuals can make in a children's coaching environment to just improve aspects here and
there? So you control 2 things as a coach. You control practice design and you control coach behaviors. Just get really intentional with coach behaviors. Once you've got some games that you can clearly see that kids engage with, and I've got 4 games. I only play 4 games. I play banking, I play rondo, I play 50-22, although a kid the other day changed it to 50-24, which I quite enjoyed, because there isn't a 24 line on the pitch, but I like the idea that there might be. And I play Park the Bus. I got 4 games. But really, think about if someone put a camera on you, and you might let them put a camera on you, or you might put your phone in your pocket and just, record 10 minutes of audio, or you might take your phone and practice your introduction to the session, so that we all stood out in the rain for 10 minutes while Rusty explains what the hell's going on. Then just think about, what are you doing as a coach? Where am I standing? Who are the top 3 kids I'm speaking to? Who are the bottom 3 and why? Am I really intentional with that? When I'm doing feedback, like, am I asking permission or not? When I'm working with other coaches, how often are we checking in? Who's speaking first in a huddle? All of these things are kind of options, but for me, it would just start with like maybe just a bit of an audit around what is it that I'm doing as a coach. And you might just, you might video part your session, you might get someone to annotate it, you might get someone just with a stopwatch to record how long each of your huddles are. So I'll often ask the coach, they might have done a stoppage to go, how long do you think that was? Just to check that they're aware. They might go, 30 seconds, and it was 5.5 minutes. Another one that you might do is like, I see kids are potentially in a queue, I probably see them have a go at something, I'll start my stopwatch. And then I'll wait till they have another go, and I'll stop it. And it's often a really long time. But even just that as a feedback, and then to go, okay, instead of having one station of this, how about if I split the group into 2 and we have 2 stations of already half the time? So for me, the one biggest thing we can do is probably put the camera lens on us a little bit and just become more aware of what we're doing, because often we are in autopilot. And I'm as guilty as anyone else. So I did a session up at Lim, and it was fair play. It was a coach development session. I said to the coaches at the start, I'm really terrible at saying the word nice. It comes with really good intent. It's not that helpful. And anyway, at the end of the evening, they had a bobble hat to whoever guessed the closest how many times I said the word nice, which was 68 times, wow. Which is ridiculous. Yeah, it's a lot of nices, which is, again, it's just not that helpful. And again, think about maybe what your confetti is. So, maybe just audio yourself and go, what are the words I'm saying that, so unlucky is a classic one. And I work with Fletch a lot, and Fletch used to say unlucky a lot. And I was like, you don't say lucky when they do it well. And I get that unlucky comes from a really good place, but actually reframe it. Unlucky is quite unkind, because actually you haven't given anyone you've kind of let them get away with it. And you possibly, if they're not aware of it and they don't know what to do differently next time, well, we haven't helped people get better.
Luck takes out accountability, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a way better way of saying it.
From the perspective of people who are listening today, Rusty, who want to follow your coaching journey a bit more and find out more of the things that you think matter, how can they follow you? How can they get in touch with you?
As long as you are comfortable with me hating the Conservatives, probably on Twitter, at Russell Earnshaw. We got a podcast, Magic Academy podcast, which has been the best CPD I've ever done. To speak to, again, as coaches, just the world is open to us now, really. We can just access so much stuff. And obviously, UK coaching, probably a really good example of loads of great resources, of speaking with experts, of taking a couple of nuggets from here and trying it there. So, yeah, I've done the podcast as well. They're probably the 2 ones I'm on. Since you mentioned that John Mitchell's been on TikTok, I may have to go onto TikTok just to see what's going on there. I've been playing around a bit with Insta, as you said, and just trying to put a bit more content on there. Some of that will be relatively rugby-centric, but I guess some of the more the UK coaching videos I've done are probably a bit more generic across the sport. So, yeah. And if people ever reach out, I will always get back to people and connect with them. And because, I guess we're all on this journey of trying to be better coaches. I look back, there's a couple of videos of me coaching, and one's at Saracens. I think it's in about, I don't know, let's say it's about 7 or 8 years ago. And people go, oh, what's your coach? There's a really good video on that. Oh, then I know it's really terrible. We're all having that. I did this last week, and it was, I'm having that moment in the car where it's, I wish the world would cave in on me. So, yeah, no, look, I'm always keen to chat to coaches, and those are probably the places to find.
Well, I reckon we've won some hearts and minds for Rugby Union today, Rusty, because I think we've probably taken it off in a rugby tangent more than once. One thing I have to point out is when you were talking about those Bath days and playing a bit of tag or just running for 10 minutes before games, in that era, Bath did win a European Cup. So I feel like it's probably acceptable, and actually it might be a lesson to all teams now to take things back to basics. Rusty, thank you for coming on today, and thank you for listening at home. We hope you've enjoyed. Be sure to leave us a review and share this with someone else who you think might enjoy it too. Check out our website, www.playtheirway.org, and follow Play Their Way on social media, at Play Their Way on TikTok, X and LinkedIn, and at Play Their Way UK on Facebook and Instagram.